The police cruiser's siren cut through Atlanta's morning air as Sarah Collins accelerated down the empty streets toward Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. The dashboard clock read 6:47 a.m., and the Georgia sun was just beginning to pierce through the thick humidity that clung to the city like a second skin. K9 Unit Charlie 7, confirm receipt, suspected contraband at Hangar 12 shipment from Miami, crackled the dispatcher's voice through the static. Charlie 7 confirming. ETA 5 minutes, Sarah responded, her eyes flicking to the rearview mirror where Max sat alert in his custom tactical harness. The Belgian Malinois' ears were perked forward, his golden eyes focused and intelligent, already shifting into work mode. Another day, another mission, right, partner? Sarah said, feeling that familiar surge of confidence that came from working alongside the most reliable partner she'd ever had. Max tilted his head slightly, a gesture Sarah had learned to read after 6 years together. It meant he was ready, focused, and trusting her completely. That trust had been earned through countless operations, from dismantling terrorist cells to intercepting massive drug shipments from South America. Just last month, they'd prevented a bombing at the CNN center that could have killed hundreds. The airport's cargo section came into view, a sprawling complex of warehouses and loading docks where millions of dollars in legitimate and illegitimate goods passed through daily. Sarah pulled up to Hangar 12, where Customs Agent Wilson waited, clipboard in hand, and sweat already beading on his forehead despite the early hour. "Officer Collins, thank God you're here," Wilson said, avoiding direct eye contact as he always did. The man had been with Customs for 15 years, but still acted nervous around every K9 unit. "The shipment arrived 2 hours ago from Miami. Documentation looks clean, but our intelligence flagged some suspicious activity." Sarah opened the rear door, and Max jumped out gracefully, immediately beginning his pre-search routine, a series of quick sniffs that oriented him to the environment. His behavior shifted like flipping a switch. The playful dog who'd shared her breakfast bacon was now a focused detection machine. "What kind of intelligence?" Sarah asked, clipping Max's tactical leash to her belt. "Financial irregularities in the shipping company. 3 other loads in the past month got flagged by different agencies, but nothing concrete was found." Wilson led them toward the hangar. "This one's marked as medical equipment bound for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta." Sarah frowned. Medical equipment shipments were usually handled with extra care, and using children's hospitals as cover was particularly despicable if smugglers were involved. Inside Hangar 12, dozens of wooden crates were stacked in precise rows, each marked with shipping labels and customs seals. The smell hit Sarah immediately, that sterile, antiseptic odor typical of medical supplies, mixed with something else she couldn't identify. "Max, work," Sarah commanded quietly. The transformation was immediate and beautiful to watch. Max began his methodical search pattern, nose to the ground, moving with the precision of a surgeon. His training had cost the department over $30,000 and taken 2 years to complete. But watching him work, Sarah knew every penny had been worth it. They moved through the first 2 rows without incident. Max showed mild interest in a few crates, but nothing that triggered his trained responses. Then they reached the 3rd row, where a cluster of crates marked "Medical Equipment Urgent" sat slightly apart from the others. Max stopped dead. His entire body language changed. His ears flattened slightly. His tail went rigid, and he began a slow, deliberate circle around one specific crate. This wasn't his usual alert for drugs or explosives. This was something Sarah had only seen twice before in their partnership. "Wilson, back up," Sarah ordered, her hand instinctively moving to her service weapon. Max completed his circle and sat directly in front of the crate, looking up at Sarah with an intensity that made her heart race. 2 sharp barks, the signal they drilled thousands of times, human danger. "That's impossible," Wilson stammered. "It's medical equipment. The paperwork is perfect. The seals are intact." A sound from inside the crate cut him off. Muffled, barely audible, but unmistakably human. a weak moan, like someone trying to call for help through layers of packing material. Sarah's training kicked in. "Wilson, get me a crowbar, now, and call for backup and an ambulance." "But the customs regulations, now." Sarah's voice carried the authority of someone who'd faced down armed terrorists and lived to tell about it. While Wilson fumbled for tools, Sarah knelt beside Max, running her hand along his muscled shoulders. "Good boy. Stay alert." Max's eyes never left the crate, but his tail wagged once, a tiny acknowledgement of her praise. Even in the most dangerous situations, their partnership was built on trust and communication. The crowbar bit into the wooden slats with a sharp crack. Sarah pried carefully, aware that whoever was inside might be injured. As the wood gave way, she heard the sound again, weaker now, more desperate. "Jesus Christ," Wilson whispered as the crate opened. Inside, nestled among foam padding and fake medical equipment, was a girl who couldn't have been more than 11 years old. She was unconscious, her lips tinged blue from oxygen deprivation, her small body curled in a position that spoke of hours or days of confinement. Sarah immediately checked for a pulse, weak but steady. The child was alive, but barely. "Control, this is Charlie 7. Code red at Hangar 12. We need paramedics immediately." "Child victim. Possible kidnapping." Sarah spoke rapidly into her radio while checking the girl's airways. Max positioned himself protectively between Sarah and the hangar entrance, his instincts telling him this situation was far from over. "Who is she?" Wilson asked, his voice shaking. "I don't know, but someone's going to pay for this," Sarah replied grimly. That's when she noticed them. 3 figures moving purposefully through the shadows at the far end of the hangar. They weren't customs officials or airport security. They moved with military precision, and the bulges under their jackets suggested they were armed. "Wilson, get behind those crates," Sarah ordered, drawing her weapon. Max's low growl confirmed what Sarah already knew. They were in serious danger. "Sarah Collins," one of the figures called out, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. The fact that they knew her name sent ice through her veins. "You just made a very serious mistake," the voice continued. Before Sarah could respond, the world exploded into chaos. A canister rolled across the floor, spewing thick white smoke that burned her eyes and throat. Tear gas. "Max!" Sarah called out, but her voice was already weakening as the chemical cloud enveloped them. She felt Max's body pressed against her leg, heard his distressed whining as the gas affected him too. Sarah tried to maintain consciousness, tried to keep her weapon ready, but the world was spinning and darkening around the edges. Her last coherent thought was of the little girl in the crate, and the promise she'd made to herself 6 years ago when she first became Max's partner, that they would always protect the innocent, no matter the cost. When Sarah woke up 20 minutes later, the hangar was full of paramedics and firefighters. The little girl was being loaded into an ambulance, oxygen mask over her face but alive, but Max was gone. Her partner, her best friend, the most loyal creature she'd ever known, vanished without a trace. Sarah Collins' worst nightmare had just begun. 6 weeks had passed since Max's disappearance, and Sarah Collins looked like a woman possessed. Her desk at the Atlanta Police Department's K9 unit resembled a war room. Maps of the city covered in red pins marking potential sightings, photographs of Max taped to every available surface, and stacks of case files that she'd read and reread until the words blurred together. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago, but Sarah barely noticed. Sleep had become a luxury she couldn't afford, not when Max was out there somewhere, possibly hurt, possibly. She refused to finish that thought. "Collins, you look like hell," Detective Ray Martinez said, leaning against her cubicle with his trademark smirk. Martinez had always rubbed her the wrong way. Too slick, too quick to take shortcuts, the kind of cop who gave the badge a bad name. "Thanks for the observation, Martinez. Real helpful," Sarah replied without looking up from the missing person report she was filling out for the 100th time. "Look, I get it. Losing a dog is tough, but maybe it's time to face reality. These traffickers don't exactly run a lost and found service." Sarah's hand stopped moving across the paper. Something in Martinez's tone made her look up. "What did you say?" "I said losing a dog." "No, the part about traffickers. I never mentioned human trafficking in any of my reports." Martinez's smile faltered for just a second, but it was enough. "Come on, Collins. Word gets around. Everyone knows what happened at the airport." But Sarah knew that wasn't true. The details of the case had been classified above most officers' clearance levels. Only a handful of people knew about the human trafficking connection. "Right," Sarah said slowly. "Word gets around." Martinez pushed off from her desk. "Just saying, maybe you should take Captain Morrison's advice and accept a new partner. That German Shepherd Rex is well trained. Could be good for you." After Martinez left, Sarah sat staring at the space where he'd been standing. How did he know about the trafficking? And why was everyone so eager for her to give up on Max and move on? Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. "K9 Unit, Officer Collins." "Sarah, it's Dr. Patricia Reeves at Children's Healthcare. I wanted to update you on Maria Santos." Sarah straightened up. Maria was the little girl they'd found in the crate, the reason Max had disappeared. "How is she?" "Physically, she's recovering well, but psychologically..." Dr. Reeves paused. "She's been asking for you, and specifically for Max. She keeps saying the dog saved her life. Can I see her? I think it would help. She's been having nightmares, and she might feel safer talking to you." 20 minutes later, Sarah walked through the pediatric ward of Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. The cheerful colors and cartoon characters on the walls seemed to mock the darkness of what had brought Maria here. Room 314 was quiet, decorated with get-well cards from strangers who'd heard Maria's story on the news. The little girl sat by the window, staring out at the Atlanta skyline, with eyes that held too much knowledge for someone so young. "Hi, Maria. I'm Officer Collins. Do you remember me?" Maria turned slowly. Her dark hair had been washed and braided, and she wore a hospital gown decorated with smiling unicorns, but her eyes remained haunted. "You're the lady with the dog," Maria said in accented English. "Where is he?" Sarah felt her throat tighten. Max is missing. Some bad people took him." Maria's eyes widened with fear. "The same bad people who took me?" "I think so." "Maria, can you tell me anything about where you were before we found you? Anything you remember might help me find Max." The girl looked around nervously, as if expecting someone to be listening. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "There were other children, many others, in a dark place that smelled bad." Sarah knelt beside the bed. "What kind of dark place?" "Like a basement, but bigger, with cages." Maria's small hands twisted the hospital blanket. "The men who guarded us were mean, but they were scared too." "Scared of what?" "Of him, the boss man. He came sometimes and the guards would stand very straight like soldiers." Sarah's pulse quickened. "Can you describe this boss man?" "Tall, white hair. He wore a police uniform like yours, but with more shiny things on it." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. The description could fit any number of senior officers, but something about it nagged at her. "Maria, did you ever hear any names? Anything the guards called this boss man?" The girl thought for a moment. "Captain. They called him Captain." Before Sarah could ask more questions, Dr. Reeves entered the room. "I'm sorry, Officer Collins, but Maria needs to rest now. The FBI will be interviewing her tomorrow, and we don't want to overwhelm her." "The FBI?" "Agent Rebecca Chen. She's taking over the federal aspects of the case." Sarah nodded, but her mind was racing. "A police captain involved in human trafficking," the description Maria had given. The way Martinez had known classified information. As she left the hospital, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or you'll end up like your dog." Sarah looked around the parking garage, suddenly aware of how isolated she was. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every car could contain someone watching her. Back at the station, Sarah tried to access the federal case files on her computer, but they'd been moved to a higher classification level. When she attempted to pull up the original airport incident report, she found it had been edited. Key details about the human trafficking evidence had been removed. Looking for something specific, Collins? Sarah spun around to find Captain Morrison standing behind her desk. At 55, Morrison was a respected veteran with 30 years on the force. He'd been her mentor when she first joined the K9 unit, the one who'd recommended her for partnership with Max. "Just trying to follow up on some leads, Captain." Morrison's steel-grey eyes studied her carefully. "Sarah, I know losing Max has been hard on you, but you need to understand that some cases are bigger than one missing dog. He's not just a dog, sir. He's my partner. I know that, but the federal investigators are handling the trafficking angle now. Your job is to focus on what you can control." Morrison gestured toward the corner where a young German shepherd sat patiently. "Meet Rex. He's been trained at the same facility as Max. Could be a good fresh start." Sarah looked at Rex. A beautiful dog, well-trained, eager to please. But he wasn't Max. No dog could ever be Max. "With respect, Captain, I'm not ready for a new partner." Morrison's expression hardened slightly. "Sarah, that wasn't a suggestion. Rex needs a handler, and you need to get back to work. The city doesn't stop needing police dogs because you're grieving." That night, Sarah sat in her apartment, staring at photos of Max scattered across her coffee table. 6 years of memories. Max as a puppy in training, their first successful drug bust, the time he'd saved her life by alerting to a bomb in a warehouse. Her landline rang. Sarah rarely gave out her home number. "Hello? Officer Collins?" The voice was female, nervous, speaking with a Hispanic accent. "Yes, who is this?" "I have information about your dog, but I can't talk on the phone. Meet me tomorrow at Piedmont Park, North Entrance, 3 p.m. Come alone." "Wait." The line went dead. Sarah stared at the phone. It could be a trap. Everything that had happened suggested she was being watched, that people wanted her to stop looking for Max. But it was the first real lead she'd had in weeks. She looked at the photos of Max again, remembering the trust in his golden eyes, the way he'd positioned himself protectively between her and danger countless times. If someone had information about Max, she had to take the risk, even if it meant walking into another trap. Sarah spent the rest of the night cleaning her service weapon and planning for tomorrow's meeting. She had no backup she could trust, no supervisor she could confide in, and no partner to watch her back. For the first time in her career, Sarah Collins was truly alone, but she was going to find Max no matter what it cost her. Sarah arrived at Piedmont Park 30 minutes early, positioning herself where she could observe the north entrance from multiple angles. The October afternoon was crisp, with families enjoying the weather and joggers following the park's winding trails. It was the kind of normal scene that made the darkness she was investigating seem surreal. Her phone buzzed with a text from Captain Morrison. "Collins, where are you? Rex needs his first training session." Sarah typed back, "Taking personal time. Will be in tomorrow." She watched people come and go, analyzing each person's behavior, looking for anything that seemed out of place. Her police training had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now those instincts were screaming that she was walking into something dangerous. At exactly 3 p.m., a woman approached the entrance. Hispanic, mid-40s, with tired eyes and hands that shook slightly as she lit a cigarette. She looked around nervously before spotting Sarah. "Officer Collins?" "Yes. You called about Max?" The woman nodded, glancing around one more time. "My name is Ana Garcia. We need to talk, but not here. Too many eyes." They walked to a secluded bench near the park's rose garden. Anna's hands continued to shake as she spoke. "Your dog is alive," Anna said without preamble. "But he's being held at a warehouse on the south side of the city." Sarah's heart raced. "How do you know this?" "Because I work there. I've been working for them for 3 years, hoping—" Anna's voice broke slightly. "Hoping to find my daughter." "Your daughter?" Anna pulled out a worn photograph from her purse, a beautiful 12-year-old girl with Anna's eyes and smile. "Isabella. She was taken from our apartment 5 years ago while I was working my night shift at the hospital." Sarah felt a chill of recognition. "Human trafficking? The same network that had the girl you found at the airport, Maria Santos." Anna took a shaky drag from her cigarette. "When I couldn't find Isabella through normal channels, when the police told me she was probably a runaway who would come home on her own, I started looking elsewhere." "How did you find the warehouse?" I heard rumors in the neighborhoods where these things happen. Whispers about children disappearing, about powerful people who made sure investigations went nowhere. Anna's eyes hardened. I applied for a cleaning job at the warehouse, told them I was desperate for work, would ask no questions. Sarah leaned forward. What did you find? Hell. Children kept in cages in the basement, guards who treated them like cargo, and a system that moves kids through Atlanta like packages on an assembly line. But Isabella? Anna shook her head, tears threatening. Never found her, but I've seen dozens of other children come and go. None of them ever came back. Sarah felt sick. Why didn't you go to the police? Anna laughed bitterly. I tried. The first detective I spoke to seemed sympathetic, took notes, promised to investigate. 2 days later, I got a visit at my apartment from 2 men who told me that talking to police was bad for my health. Who were these men? One was a cop. I recognized his uniform, his badge. The other was Private Muscle. They made it clear that if I spoke to police again, I'd disappear just like Isabella. Sarah's mind raced. The corruption went deeper than she'd imagined. But you're talking to me now because you saved Maria, because you're the first cop I've seen who actually cared enough to find the truth. Anna stubbed out her cigarette. And because your dog, he's different. What do you mean? Anna's expression softened slightly. Max has been protecting the children. Somehow he got loose from whatever restraints they had him in. Now he positions himself between the kids and the guards. The men are afraid of him. Sarah felt a surge of pride mixed with worry. Even in captivity, Max was still serving and protecting. How many children are there? Changes constantly. Right now, maybe 15. They're moved out in small groups every few weeks. Anna's voice dropped to a whisper. Tonight, they're planning to move all of them, including your dog. Where? I don't know. Probably out of state, maybe out of the country. Once they leave that warehouse, they disappear forever. Sarah felt panic rising. I need the address. Anna hesitated. If you go there, you'll be walking into a trap. They've been expecting you to find out about the warehouse. Your dog is bait. I don't care. I'm not leaving Max. Anna studied Sarah's face and seemed to recognize something there. You really love that dog. He's not just my partner, he's family. And those children, they're someone's daughters and sons. Anna nodded slowly. I understand. Family is everything. She paused, her voice becoming heavy with memory. Isabella was my only child. Her father left when she was 3, said he couldn't handle the responsibility. It was just me and her against the world. Tell me about her. She was brilliant. Straight A's. Wanted to be a doctor like the ones who saved her grandmother when Isabella was 7. She spoke 3 languages and could solve math problems that stumped me. Anna smiled through her tears. She was going to change the world. Sarah felt the weight of Anna's loss. How many other families had been destroyed by this network? The night they took her, Isabella was doing homework at our kitchen table. I kissed her goodbye before my shift, told her to lock the door and not open it for anyone. Anna's hands clenched into fists. When I came home the next morning, the door was kicked in. Isabella was gone. No ransom note, no demands, just gone. I'm sorry. For 3 years I worked in that warehouse, cleaning blood off the floors, emptying trash cans full of evidence, hoping to find some trace of her. I saw children who looked like her, who could have been her, but none of them were Isabella. Sarah pulled out her phone and showed Anna the police database photo. This detective, the one you spoke to. Is this him? Anna's face went white. How did you... Yes, that's him. Sarah stared at the photo of Detective Ray Martinez, the same Martinez who had known classified information about the trafficking case, the same Martinez who kept pushing her to give up on Max. There's something else, Anna continued. The man who runs the operation, the one who gives all the orders, he's not what you'd expect. What do you mean? He doesn't look like a criminal. Dresses well, speaks educated, treats the whole thing like a business, and he has protection. What kind of protection? Anna looked directly at Sarah. Police protection. I've seen cops come to the warehouse, not to raid it, but to meet with him. They bring information, take envelopes full of money. Sarah felt her world tilting. Can you identify any of them? Anna pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a picture she'd taken from a warehouse window. The image was grainy, taken from a distance, but Sarah could make out two figures in police uniforms talking to a third man in an expensive suit. One of the officers looked familiar. Sarah zoomed in on the photo and felt her blood turn to ice. It was Captain Morrison. "Are you sure this is recent?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Last week. He comes every Friday to collect his payment and get updates on the operation." Sarah stared at the photo of the man who'd been her mentor, who'd recommended her for the K9 unit, who'd been pushing her to accept a new partner and forget about Max. Morrison wasn't just aware of the trafficking network, he was part of it. "Sarah," Anna said gently, "there's one more thing you need to know. Tonight, when they move the children, they're planning to kill your dog. He's become too much of a problem, too protective of the kids. They can't control him anymore." Sarah looked up from the photo, her decision already made. "Where is this warehouse?" "Industrial Road, Warehouse 47. But Sarah, if you go there alone—" "I won't be alone." Sarah stood up, her mind already working through the possibilities. "Anna, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Stay away from that warehouse tonight. Go somewhere public, somewhere with witnesses. If this goes wrong, I need you alive to tell the truth." Anna grabbed Sarah's arm. "Don't do this. Find another way." "There is no other way. Those children have been waiting too long for someone to save them. And Max—" Sarah's voice caught. "Max has been holding the line for 6 weeks. It's time to bring him home." As Sarah walked away from the park, her phone rang. "Captain Morrison. Collins, we need to talk. My office, 1 hour." "I'll be there, Captain." But Sarah had no intention of going to Morrison's office. Instead, she was going to do something that would either save Max and those children or get her killed in the process. She was going to take down the entire network, starting with the man she'd once trusted with her life. Sarah sat in her car outside the FBI field office in downtown Atlanta, staring at her phone. She'd been holding the same number for 20 minutes, knowing that once she made this call, there would be no going back. Morrison would know she'd gone federal, and her life in the Atlanta PD would be over. But Max was running out of time. She dialed. "Agent Rebecca Chen, Financial Crimes Division." "Agent Chen, this is Officer Sarah Collins, Atlanta PD. I have information about a human trafficking network operating out of Atlanta, and I need federal assistance." There was a brief pause. "Officer Collins, can you come in for a briefing? We've been tracking some financial irregularities that might connect to what you're describing." "I can't come to your office. Too many people know where I am already. Can you meet me somewhere public?" "How about the Starbucks on Peachtree, near the Fox Theater? 1 hour?" Sarah checked her watch. 4:30 p.m. Anna had said the children would be moved tonight, which meant she had maybe 6 hours before Max and those kids disappeared forever. The Starbucks was busy with the evening rush, providing the perfect cover for a clandestine meeting. Sarah spotted Agent Chen immediately. Mid-30s, Asian American, wearing a conservative suit and carrying herself with the confident bearing of someone who'd seen the worst humanity had to offer and still believed in justice. "Officer Collins?" Chen approached with 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you need this." Sarah accepted the coffee gratefully. She hadn't slept in 36 hours, and the caffeine was the only thing keeping her upright. "Agent Chen, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound insane, but I have proof." Chen pulled out a small digital recorder. "Start from the beginning." Sarah told her everything. Max's disappearance, Maria Santos, the warehouse, Anna's information, and finally, the photograph of Captain Morrison. Chen listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious with each revelation. "This Morrison, how long have you known him?" 6 years. He was my mentor when I joined the K9 unit. I trusted him with my life." Chen studied the photograph on Sarah's phone. "We've been tracking financial flows from Atlanta to offshore accounts. Over $12 million in the past 18 months, but we could never identify the local operation. How many people are involved? Based on the money flows? At least 50, probably more. Police, customs officials, judges, shipping company executives." Chen leaned forward. Officer Collins, what you've uncovered could bring down one of the largest trafficking networks in the Southeast. I don't care about the network right now. I care about those children and my partner. They're being moved tonight. Chen checked her watch. We can organize a federal raid, but it'll take time to get the warrants, coordinate with local. There is no time. Sarah's voice rose, causing other customers to look their way. She lowered it to an urgent whisper. By the time federal bureaucracy gets moving, Max and those kids will be gone forever. Sarah, you can't go in alone. It's suicide. Then come with me. Chen stared at her. You're serious. Dead serious. You want this network? Tonight's your chance. But we do it now, or we don't do it at all. Chen was quiet for a long moment, weighing options. Finally, she pulled out her phone. I have a contact at the U.S. Marshal Service, Deputy Marshal James Rodriguez. Clean record, no Atlanta connections. 20 minutes later, they were joined by Rodriguez, a tall Hispanic man with the kind of controlled intensity that came from years of hunting dangerous fugitives. Agent Chen briefed me, Rodriguez said, sliding into their booth. This is personal for me, too. My little sister was taken by traffickers when she was 14. We never found her. Sarah felt an immediate kinship with this man she'd just met. They all had personal stakes in this fight. Here's what we know. Chen spread out building schematics she'd pulled from city records. Warehouse 47 is a 3-story building. Ground floor for processing, second floor offices, basement storage. The children are in the basement, Sarah added. Anna said Max is down there too, protecting them. Rodriguez pointed to the building's weak spots. Service entrance on the east side, less visible from the street, probably only one guard, but once we're inside, we'll be outnumbered. How many guards? Chen asked. Anna said 6, maybe 8, all armed. Sarah studied the layout. If they're moving the children tonight, there might be additional security. What about backup? Rodriguez asked. Chen shook her head. We can't trust local PD, too many compromised officers, and federal backup would take hours to coordinate through proper channels. So it's just the 3 of us, Sarah said, against at least 8 armed men in a fortified position with innocent hostages, Rodriguez added grimly. Sarah's phone buzzed. Text message from Morrison. Collins, you missed our meeting. Where are you? She showed the message to Chen and Rodriguez. He's getting nervous, Chen observed. Sarah typed back, following up on a lead about Max. We'll report in tomorrow. Morrison's response came immediately. What kind of lead? Where are you? Sarah turned off her phone. He knows something's up, which means our timeline just got shorter, Rodriguez said. If Morrison warns the warehouse, they could move the children immediately. Sarah stood up. Then we go now. Chen grabbed her arm. Sarah, wait. We need a plan. We need equipment. We need to stop talking and start moving. Every minute we spend planning is another minute those children spend in hell. Rodriguez was already standing. She's right. Sometimes you have to go with what you have, instead of waiting for what you want. Chen looked between them, seeing the determination in their faces. Finally, she nodded. Okay, but we do this smart. Rodriguez, what equipment do we have? 3 sidearms, 1 tactical vest, basic communications equipment. Not exactly a SWAT loadout. It'll have to do, Sarah said. Anna told me the guards change shifts at 8 p.m. That's our window. And if Max doesn't recognize us in the dark? Chen asked. If he thinks we're threats? Sarah smiled for the first time in hours. Max knows the difference between good guys and bad guys. Always has. As they prepared to leave, Rodriguez pulled Sarah aside. You know this could be a one-way trip. I know. And you're willing to risk your life for a dog. Sarah looked at him steadily. Max isn't just a dog. He's my partner, my family, and the most loyal friend I've ever had. But more than that, he's been protecting those children for 6 weeks. He's been holding the line, keeping them safe, waiting for someone to come help them. Rodriguez nodded slowly. I understand. Family is family. Chen joined them, checking her weapon. Sarah, there's something you should know. When this is over, when we expose Morrison and the others, your career in Atlanta PD is finished. They'll close ranks, protect their own. I figured that out already. Any regrets? Sarah thought about the past 6 weeks, the sleepless nights, the dead ends, the growing realization that she couldn't trust anyone in her own department. Then she thought about Max, standing guard over terrified children in a basement, probably hungry and scared but still doing his job. No regrets, she said firmly. As they drove through Atlanta's evening traffic toward the warehouse district, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks: hope. Not just for Max, but for all those children who'd been waiting for someone to care enough to risk everything for them. Rodriguez was right. This could be a one-way trip, but some things were worth dying for. Tonight, Sarah Collins was going to find out if she was brave enough to live up to the trust Max had always shown in her. The warehouse district stretched out before them like a concrete graveyard, lit only by scattered streetlights that cast long shadows between the industrial buildings. Sarah crouched behind a rusted shipping container, watching Warehouse 47 through night vision binoculars borrowed from Rodriguez's patrol kit. 2 guards at the main entrance, 1 roving patrol around the perimeter, she whispered into her radio. Service entrance on the east side looks clear. Copy that, Chen's voice crackled back from her position 50 yards away. I count 3 vehicles in the lot: white van, black SUV, and a pickup truck. Rodriguez's voice joined the comm. Movement on the 2nd floor. Looks like someone's packing equipment. They're definitely preparing to move. Sarah felt her heart rate spike. They were running out of time. Rodriguez, can you get to the service entrance without being seen? Give me 2 minutes. Sarah watched through her binoculars as Rodriguez moved like a shadow between the buildings, his martial training evident in every calculated step. The man had hunted fugitives across 3 states. Sneaking into a warehouse should be routine for him. But this wasn't routine. This was a fortress filled with armed criminals, innocent children, and somewhere in the basement, Max. Service door is locked. Rodriguez's voice came through the radio. Standard deadbolt. Give me 30 seconds. Sarah heard the faint scratching of lockpicks at work. Rodriguez had come prepared. We're in business, Rodriguez announced. Doors open. Chen, move to backup position. I'm going in, Sarah said. Negative. Chen's voice was firm. We go in together or not at all. Sarah wanted to argue, but she knew Chen was right. Going in alone was exactly what Morrison and his network expected her to do. Fine. Rodriguez, hold position at the door. Chen and I will enter together. Sarah moved swiftly through the shadows, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Every sound seemed amplified, the distant hum of traffic, the wind rattling loose metal siding, her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. She reached the service entrance where Rodriguez waited, his weapon drawn. Basement access is through that door. He pointed to a heavy metal door marked Authorized Personnel Only. But there's a guard station right at the bottom of the stairs. How many? Chen asked, arriving beside them. One that I can see, but voices suggest at least 2 more down there. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to picture the layout. Max was down there, probably weak from weeks of captivity, but still protecting those children. She had to get to him. I go first, Sarah said. If Max sees me before he sees you, he won't attack. They moved into the warehouse, the smell hitting them immediately. Fear, unwashed bodies, and something else Sarah recognized from crime scenes. Desperation. The basement stairs creaked softly under their weight. Sarah could hear voices below, speaking in low, urgent tones. Boss wants them all loaded by 10. Dog's been nothing but trouble. Should have put it down weeks ago. Sarah's grip tightened on her weapon. They were talking about Max. At the bottom of the stairs, Sarah peered around the corner. The basement had been converted into a nightmare, rows of makeshift cells constructed from chain-link fencing, each barely large enough for a child to lie down. And there, in the largest cell at the far end, she saw them. 14 children, ages ranging from maybe 8 to 16, huddled together in terror. Some were crying silently, others stared at nothing with the hollow eyes of the broken. In front of the cell, like a furry guardian angel, stood Max. The Belgian Malinois looked thinner than Sarah remembered, his coat matted and dirty, but his posture was alert and protective. Even in captivity, even weakened by weeks of inadequate food and water, he was still doing his job. Jesus, Chen whispered beside her. 3 guards were visible, one at a desk near the stairs, 2 others checking clipboards and preparing transport cages. All were armed. Sarah's radio crackled softly. "Collins, this is Morrison. I know you're there." The voice came not from her radio but from speakers mounted throughout the basement. Morrison was in the building. "Sarah Collins, always the stubborn one," Morrison's voice echoed off the concrete walls. "You should have accepted Rex and moved on with your life." The guards were now alert, weapons drawn, searching for the source of the intrusion. "You want your dog? Come get him, but come alone, or we start executing children." Sarah felt Chen's hand on her arm, a silent plea not to do anything reckless. "I know you can hear me, Sarah. You have 60 seconds to show yourself, or the first child dies." In the cell, Max had turned toward the stairs, his ears perked. Somehow, despite the echoing acoustics, he knew Sarah was close. 30 seconds, Sarah." Sarah made her decision. She stepped into the open, hands raised, weapon visible but not aimed. "I'm here, Morrison." Captain Morrison emerged from the shadows near the back of the basement, flanked by 2 more armed men Sarah didn't recognize. At 55, he still carried himself with military bearing, but his eyes held a coldness she'd never seen before. "Sarah, my star pupil, you could have had a brilliant career. I thought I was having one, until I found out my mentor was trafficking children." Morrison smiled without warmth. "Trafficking is such an ugly word. I prefer to think of it as supply and demand economics. Those are children, not commodities. Children who were already lost, already forgotten by society. At least this way, their lives serve a purpose." Sarah felt sick. "How long, Morrison? How long have you been doing this?" 8 years. Started small, just moving runaways who wouldn't be missed, but the demand grew and we expanded operations. You'd be surprised how many people in positions of authority understand the value of supplemental income. Judges who need campaign funding, politicians who need favors, cops who need pension supplements. Sarah thought about all the cases over the years where evidence had disappeared, where investigations had stalled, where children had vanished without adequate follow-up. "The airport was a mistake," Morrison continued. "We'd been using that route for months without incident, but your damn dog had to be exceptional at his job." In the cell, Max was becoming agitated, sensing the tension in the air. The children pressed against the back of the cage, terrified. "That's why we took him," Morrison said. "Couldn't risk him alerting to other shipments. But he's been more trouble than he's worth." Morrison nodded to one of his men, who raised his weapon toward Max. "No," Sarah shouted. "Then you understand the situation. Your dog dies, then the children, then you and your federal friends hiding upstairs." Sarah's mind raced. Morrison knew about Chen and Rodriguez. They'd walked into a trap. "You've been monitoring police communications," she realized. "Among other things, did you really think you could investigate this network without us knowing every move you made?" That's when Sarah heard it. A soft whining from Max. Not distress, but recognition. He was trying to tell her something. Following Max's gaze, Sarah noticed that one of the cell doors wasn't properly latched. Max had been working to free the children. "Morrison," Sarah said, hoping to keep his attention focused on her. "Why reveal all this? Why not just kill us and be done with it?" "Because you're going to be the proof that this network doesn't exist. Tomorrow, the news will report that Officer Sarah Collins, distraught over losing her partner, went on a violent rampage that resulted in multiple deaths at a warehouse. Tragic story of a good cop who snapped under pressure." Morrison raised his own weapon. "Any last words?" Sarah looked at Max one more time, seeing the intelligence and loyalty that had made him the perfect partner. Even now, he was ready to protect those children with his life. "Yeah," Sarah said. "Max, Code Red." It was a command they'd trained for but never used, the signal for maximum protective response in a hostage situation. Max exploded into action, shouldering open the loose cell door and launching himself at the nearest guard. The basement erupted into chaos as Chen and Rodriguez opened fire from the stairs. The children screamed and Sarah dove for cover behind a concrete pillar. Gunfire echoed off the walls as Sarah tried to get a clear shot at Morrison. She could see Max taking down one of the guards with the precision of his training, while the children cowered in the now open cell. "Chen, get the kids out," Sarah shouted over the gunfire. "Working on it," Chen replied, advancing carefully down the stairs while Rodriguez provided cover fire. Morrison was retreating toward a back exit, still firing. Sarah pursued, determined not to let him escape. "It's over, Morrison." "No, Sarah. You have no idea how deep this goes. Killing me won't stop anything. Maybe not, but it'll sure as hell make me feel better." Morrison's next shot went wide. Sarah's didn't. The basement fell silent, except for the sound of children crying and Max's heavy panting as he stood guard over the fallen guards. Sarah rushed to Max, kneeling beside him to check for injuries. He was exhausted and malnourished, but alive. "Good boy," she whispered, running her hands through his matted fur. "You did good, partner." Max's tail wagged weakly, and for the first time in 6 weeks, Sarah Collins allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. 6 months later, Sarah Collins stood on the courthouse steps in downtown Atlanta, watching as the last defendant in the Circle Network case was led away in handcuffs. Detective Ray Martinez had just been sentenced to 25 years to life for conspiracy, human trafficking, and accessory to murder. His cocky smile was nowhere to be seen as federal marshals escorted him to the transport van. "That's 47 convictions total," Agent Rebecca Chen said, joining Sarah on the steps. 12 police officers, 3 judges, 2 state senators, and 30 others. We've rescued over 200 children and shut down trafficking routes across 5 states. Sarah nodded, but her attention was focused on Max, who sat patiently beside her in his pristine tactical harness. The veterinarians had said he might never fully recover from his ordeal. Months of captivity and inadequate nutrition had taken their toll. But Max had proven them wrong, with the same determination he brought to every mission. "The FBI wants to offer you a position," Chen continued, "Financial Crimes Division, focusing on human trafficking investigations. The pay's better than Atlanta PD, and you'd be working cases that actually matter." "I appreciate the offer," Sarah replied, "but Max and I are happy where we are." Chen looked surprised. "You're staying with Atlanta PD after everything that happened?" Sarah smiled, watching Max track the movement of a squirrel across the courthouse lawn. Even at rest, he was always alert, always working. New administration, new policies, new leadership. Captain Foster is cleaning house and rebuilding the department from the ground up. She asked me to head the new Internal Affairs K9 unit. Hunting corrupt cops with a dog, who's famous for catching corrupt cops. I like it. Deputy Marshal James Rodriguez approached, his arm finally free of the sling he'd worn since the warehouse firefight. "Sarah, the kids wanted me to give you this." He handed her a thick envelope covered in crayon drawings and stickers. Inside were dozens of handwritten thank you notes from the children they'd rescued. "Dear Officer Sarah and Max," Sarah read aloud from one, "thank you for saving us. Max was very brave and kept us safe when we were scared. I want to be a police officer like you when I grow up. Love, Maria." Sarah felt tears threatening. Maria Santos had recovered remarkably well, considering her ordeal. The girl was back in school, living with a foster family in North Carolina, and according to her therapist, showing no signs of the severe trauma that usually accompanied trafficking victims. "And this one's my favorite," Rodriguez said, pointing to a drawing that showed a stick-figure police officer standing next to a brown dog with a big smile. "It's from Tommy, the 8-year-old who was in the cell next to where Max was guarding them." Sarah studied the childish artwork. In the drawing, Max was clearly the hero, bigger than the police officer with a cape drawn in red crayon. "He's not wrong," Chen observed. "Max probably saved their lives. If he hadn't kept those guards at bay, who knows what would have happened during those 6 weeks?" Sarah knelt beside Max, running her fingers through his now glossy coat. The months of proper nutrition and veterinary care had restored his physical condition, but it was the purpose that had truly healed him. Max needed to work, needed to serve and protect. It was in his DNA. "What about Ana Garcia?" Sarah asked Rodriguez. "Safe in witness protection with her son, new identities, new life in Oregon. She's working as a school counselor now, helping kids who've experienced trauma." Rodriguez paused. "She asked me to tell you that Isabella would have been proud." Sarah remembered Anna's daughter, the 12-year-old girl whose disappearance had started Anna on her dangerous path to infiltrate the trafficking network. They'd never found Isabella, but the investigation had uncovered evidence suggesting she'd been moved to Central America years ago. It was a cold trail that might never lead anywhere, but at least Anna had helped save others. "Any word on the financial investigation?" Sarah asked Chen. "Ongoing. We've traced over $20 million through offshore accounts, shell companies, and real estate investments. Some of it we can return to victim compensation funds, but most is tied up in legal proceedings that could take years." Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Captain Foster. "Collins, we've got a situation at the port. Customs flagged a suspicious shipment from Southeast Asia. Need you and Max ASAP." Sarah showed the message to Chen and Rodriguez. "Duty calls." "Same old Sarah," Chen laughed. "Never can resist a case." "This job chose me, not the other way around," Sarah replied, clipping Max's leash to her belt. "Besides, Max gets restless when we're not working." As if to prove her point, Max stood up and walked toward their unmarked police cruiser, tail wagging with anticipation. The drive to the port took them through downtown Atlanta, past the neighborhoods where Sarah had spent weeks searching for Max, past the hospital where Maria Santos had recovered, past the FBI field office where this whole nightmare had finally started to unravel. "You know what the best part is," Sarah said to Max as they navigated traffic. "Morrison thought he was so smart, using you as bait, but he never understood what makes you special." Max looked at her in the rearview mirror, his golden eyes bright with intelligence. "It's not just your training or your nose or your ability to take down armed suspects. It's your heart. You care about protecting people, especially kids. That's something they could never understand or control." At the port, they were met by Customs Agent Wilson, the same nervous man who'd been present at the airport when this all began. But his demeanor had changed completely. Where before he'd been shifty and uncomfortable, now he seemed genuinely relieved to see them. "Officer Collins, thank God you're here. We've got a container from Cambodia that our new detection software flagged. Financial patterns match some of the accounts from the Circle Network investigation." Sarah and Max approached the container, which had been moved to a secure inspection area. The paperwork claimed it contained electronics bound for a distributor in Birmingham, Alabama. "Max, work!" Sarah commanded. The familiar routine began. Max's methodical search pattern, his incredible nose analyzing thousands of scent molecules per second, his training guiding him to potential threats. It took less than 5 minutes. Max sat directly in front of the container doors and barked twice. Human danger. "Wilson, get that container open and call for backup and medical assistance." Inside, they found 12 young women, all between 16 and 25, in various states of consciousness. Unlike the children from the warehouse, these victims were destined for forced labor in massage parlors and illegal factories. As paramedics treated the victims and federal agents processed the scene, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that morning at the airport. The Circle network was dismantled, but other networks had taken its place. The demand for human trafficking continued, which meant the supply would always find a way to meet it. But now, there were people watching. Chen's financial crimes unit was tracking money flows in real time. Rodriguez's fugitive task force was hunting traffickers across state lines, and Sarah and Max were back on the streets, using their unique partnership to find the victims who couldn't save themselves. "Collins!" Captain Foster's voice came through her radio. "Excellent work at the port. When you're done processing the scene, I want you and Max to report to City Hall." "Problem, Captain?" "Opposite of a problem. The mayor wants to present you both with the Medal of Honor, something about being heroes who restored faith in law enforcement." Sarah looked down at Max, who was sitting patiently beside the rescued women, somehow understanding that his presence was comforting to them. "What do you think, partner? Ready to be famous?" Max's tail wagged once, not in excitement but in acknowledgement. He'd do whatever was asked of him, but his heart was in the work, not the recognition. That evening, Sarah and Max walked through their neighborhood, past the houses where families were sitting down to dinner, past the parks where children played safely, past the ordinary scenes of American life that most people took for granted. "You know what the real victory is?" Sarah said to Max as they paused at their favorite coffee shop. "It's not the convictions or the awards or the media attention. It's that somewhere tonight, kids are sleeping safely in their own beds instead of in cages." Max looked up at her with those intelligent golden eyes, and Sarah could swear she saw understanding there. They'd been tested in ways that would have broken lesser partnerships, but they'd emerged stronger. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new challenges, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, Sarah Collins and her four-legged partner were going home together, as partners, as family, as guardians of justice, in a world that desperately needed both. The bond between a police officer and her dog had proven stronger than corruption, stronger than fear, stronger than the darkness that sometimes threatened to consume everything good in the world. Justice had been served. The guilty had paid for their crimes, and love, loyalty, and unwavering determination had won the day.